5 missing people in our national forests. Humans make thousands of acres of forest disappear every single day, but sometimes the woods have been known to make people disappear too. The 5 cases on this list show how national forests, despite their beauty, can sometimes be one of man's greatest adversaries. These are 5 missing people in our national forests. Number 5. Joe Keller. It was July 23, 2015 when Joe Keller and his childhood friend Collin Gwaltney headed for a run up the Rio Grande National Forest in Colorado. Keller was a serious runner and swim coach who was in the area with his friend as part of their cross-country summer adventure. The two headed out at about 4:30 p.m. Then, a quarter mile in, they split up and ran in different paths. It was normal for the two to split up since they ran at different paces. They agreed to meet later at a nearby ranch for dinner. But after 2 hours passed and they were still waiting on Keller to arrive, Gwaltney and their other friends decided to go look for him. But he was nowhere to be found, and soon volunteers began pouring into the remote Colorado mountain area on horseback and four-wheelers, hoping to find the missing 19-year-old. His family also flew in from Tennessee, helping in the search. For weeks it went on until it was scaled back on August 4th. For a full year, no one knew what happened to the young, active teen. He seemingly vanished and there were no leads discovered despite a thorough police investigation. It wasn't until a full year from his disappearance when a hiker came across human remains close to the Forest Service Road 250 in Conejos County. The remains were recovered and DNA testing was done to see if it belonged to the missing teen. The testing eventually confirmed the remains were indeed Joe Keller. According to forensics, Keller suffered a fractured skull, but police could only speculate at the cause. Prior to discovering his body, many believe foul play may have been involved. His friend Collin even suggested the possibility he may have been kidnapped. There were also questions whether he was depressed or if maybe he disappeared on his own, but his family and friends denied all this and said he wasn't the type of guy who would do that. After his body was found, investigators believe he may have accidentally fallen off a steep cliff, striking his head on a rock. However, to this day, that is just speculation, and no one knows for sure. Number 4. David Tyll and Brian Ognjan. For childhood friends Brian Ognjan and David Tyll, it was another deer hunting expedition. The two planned to visit David's family cabin located in White Cloud, Michigan on November 21, 1985. The following day, Brian cashed a $50 check, but for some reason, the friends never arrived at the cabin or even reached their friend's home in Mio, whom they intended to visit while there. The two were simply never heard from again. The vehicle they used, a black 1980 Ford Bronco, was also never found. A search was conducted and investigators believe the men never reached White Cloud at all, but witnesses said the men were seen in several bars in Miho up until November 24th. It seems that there, likely something happened to them. In the years following the men's disappearance, officers tried to track down leads, but eventually the case went cold. For almost 18 years, the case was completely quiet. But then one officer, who never gave up on the case, State Trooper Robert Bronco Lesneski, found a witness, and she shed light on what happened to the two men. He found out that the two of them were at Linker's Lounge close to Mio, Michigan. They were drinking and got into an argument with Raymond J.R. Duvall and his brother Donald Coco Duvall and their group of friends. Police were called when a brawl broke out, but the authorities never showed up. The witness, Barbara Boudreau, said that she, along with a now deceased friend, were at the bar that same night. She saw the hunters with the Duvall brothers exchange words. After that, she and her friends saw the brothers beat both Brian and David to death using a baseball bat on the field close to where her home was located. Then the Duvalls placed the bodies into the victim's Ford Bronco and drove away with it. In fear of the brothers, she kept quiet about what she saw until 2003, and it wasn't just her that came forward with information about the case. Several other people, including ex-girlfriends, have said they heard the brothers brag about the killings over the years. Raymond Duvall bragged to his son's then-girlfriend about how he and Donald killed the two hunters. He said that they put their bodies through a wood chipper and then afterwards fed the remains to their pigs. He then told her that if she ever left his son, he would do the same to her. In May of 2003, brothers Raymond and Donald were taken into custody for the murder of the two men. But it seems it wasn't just Raymond and Donald involved in the killing. It was likely a family affair. Several witnesses pointed to another brother, Rex Duvall, driving the Bronco days after the men were killed. Then another brother said he didn't help kill them, but said he helped transport the bodies. Yet another Duvall brother, Kenny, was said to have taken the Bronco and sold it for scrap. But in the end, only Raymond and Donald were sentenced to life in prison for first-degree murder. Number 3. Aaron Hedges. It was September 2014 when 38-year-old Aaron Hedges decided to go elk hunting up in the crazy mountains of Montana. He was with two of his close friends, Joe Depew and Greg Leitner. It was going to be a week-long trip for the trio, starting at the Cottonwood Lake trailhead. Hedges went on the trip carrying a bow and arrow as well as a handgun, while his companions carried rifles. They also had 2 horses, including 1 mule. But as the crew headed on the trail towards Campfire Lake, where they decided to create a base camp, the mule got spooked and started bucking. The animal threw their supplies and kit from the trail. Among the items lost was Aaron's sleeping bag. So on the morning of September 5th, Aaron decided to head to Sunlight Lake to get a replacement for his sleeping bag. Apparently, the year before, the group had created a hunting camp in the area and stashed some supplies, including a spare bag. Both Joe and Greg warned Aaron to head back down to their camp before nightfall, since it would be dangerous if he was caught there after dark. He agreed and left his friends around 10 a.m. By 4 p.m., he still hadn't returned to their base camp. Worried, his friends called him on their walkie-talkies. Looking at Aaron's GPS position, it showed he was on the edge of the screen and seemed to have missed a fork in the trail and was now heading northeast in the wrong direction. The following day, when Aaron still hadn't returned, his friends knew that he was definitely missing. A snowstorm then occurred on September 7th, burying the area in 18 to 24 inches of snow. Greg and Joe called Aaron's wife, and she was the one that informed the police that he was missing. Some people questioned why the 2 men didn't report their friend missing right away. They said they went out and looked for him themselves, and that he was an experienced woodsman with a gun. So in the back of their mind, they felt he just took a wrong turn somewhere and would turn up. When a full search was underway, the bad weather that started on September 7th made the rescue effort challenging. Despite that, though, officials sent out 20 dog teams with 7 horse teams and 59 ground searchers along with citizens to help. By September 9th, the search team found Aaron's boots east of Sunlight Lake. The boots had been deliberately placed side by side. They also found a water canteen, and off the trail a fire pit and a partially burnt cigarette pack. There was also a fire bundle close by, but aside from these items, nothing else. What's unusual is that his friends were in the same area a day or 2 before the searchers, and they said they didn't see any of the items. Without any other leads, the search slowed down. It wasn't until June of 2015 when a butcher from Wyoming came across more belongings owned by Hedges. He found backpacks, socks, shirts, a vest, bow, and sweatpants. He also found his gun and driver's license inside one of the backpacks. When the area was searched, a thermos and energy drink was further found. But it wasn't until August of 2016 when guests from Sweetgrass Ranch discovered a skull under a dead tree. Police scoured the area and found 80% of a human skeleton. When forensics were done, it was confirmed to be Aaron Hedges' remains. No indications of foul play were seen on the bones. People weren't sure why Hedges removed his boots and layers of clothing while heading in the wrong direction, but one suggested explanation was that he was disoriented and suffering from hypothermia. When someone suffers from severe hypothermia, one of the last sensations they feel is extreme temperatures in their bodies. As a result, people have been known to remove their clothes, which ultimately only makes their condition worse. Number 2. Dale Stelling. 4 days into their adults-only vacation, Deneen and Dale Stelling arrived at Mesa Verde National Park on June 9, 2013. The couple were spending their trip visiting national parks. They had just arrived from Four Corners and decided to stop in Mesa Verde. Dale told his wife he was going to hike off to Spruce Treehouse Ruin, a large cliff dwelling created by the ancestors of the Pueblo peoples from the southwest around 1211 to 1278 AD. The path itself is a quarter-of-a-mile hike and the trail is steep, although a lot of tourists go on the path as well. Deneen stayed behind, close to the visitor center, as Dale set out on his own. But after 2 hours and he still hadn't returned, Deneen became worried and informed authorities. Almost immediately, a search was conducted for the missing man, but curiously, he was nowhere in sight. During the investigation, other tourists said they spotted Dale on the Petroglyph Point Trail, another path that branches off from the Spruce Tree Trail. Several tourists said they saw Dale in the area, and during the first day of the search, the dog showed some interest, but no physical evidence was found. Dale was 51 years old at the time, and when he left, he didn't carry with him any water or extra gear. Some tourists that same afternoon reported hearing a weary male voice calling for help in a particular area around the Petroglyph Point Trail. They tried calling back several times, but nobody ever answered back. He then went up the trail and told the chief ranger, who was by now looking for Stelling. At least one other worker confirmed that they also thought someone called out to them in the same area, but they couldn't find anyone. They immediately went back to the same spot and tried looking some more, but despite this, nothing was found. Many believe Dale may have fallen from the cliff and into an area where he could not easily be seen or accessed. Others initially thought he may have left on his own will, but nothing in his life or personality pointed to this. His wife thinks he's still somewhere in the park, and police believe no foul play was involved in his disappearance. But despite the extensive search, it's still a complete mystery as to what exactly happened to Dale Stelling. Number 1. James Rambo Jr. Spotting a caribou bull close to the Kanapiscau River in Quebec, 51-year-old James Rambo Jr. decided to sprint off after it. This was September 3, 2003. Rambo was in the area with 3 other friends and fellow hunters. On the last morning he was seen, his friend said Rambo carried his rifle and walked away from Camp Sardine after seeing a bull caribou he wanted to shoot. After all, that was the reason they were there. But when he didn't return after a couple hours, his friends became worried and went out to look for him along with several camp workers. They headed towards the direction where they last saw him. Once there, they found a recently shot dead caribou, a camera, and an orange hunting vest hanging on a tree. The camera and hunting vest were owned by Rambo, but he was nowhere in the area. 2 days later, a full search was underway. A plane filled with officers was brought in, including search dogs and helicopters, all to help find the missing hunter. The police searched 4 square miles of land on foot and about 25 square miles by helicopter. But other than the vest and camera, there was no trace of him at all. It was baffling to searchers why the vest would be hung up on the tree. And even if he was attacked by an animal, there would have been telltale signs in the area, yet there was no indication of any attack, animal or human, or even signs he might have suffered an accident. His family believes that since Rambo was epileptic, it's possible he may have suffered a seizure from all the excitement of getting his first kill. Then maybe he suffered amnesia or confusion when he woke up and wandered off. Despite the extensive search, no one has found any other evidence signaling Rambo is still alive or dead. So there were 5 missing people in our national forest. Every year, hundreds of people go missing in the deep and dense national forests. Sometimes, families eventually find their answers, but for others, the questions can linger on for years, decades, or an entire lifetime. If you enjoyed watching this video, then please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. We have new videos every Wednesday and Saturday that we know you'll love. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.